Here now with more, David Wohl, attorney and conservative commentator, and Michael Starr Hopkins, a Democratic strategist who worked on both the Obama and Clinton campaigns. Welcome to both of you. Michael, let me start with you. What did you think about Joe Kennedy's comment that this is not a mental health issue?
I don't think that alone this is a mental health issue. I think here there were mental health components to it, but I think that, this is complicated. This is an assault weapons issue. This is a mental health issue. This is also a governmental response issue. We saw that the FBI had missteps. So I think that when we start talking about this, we should acknowledge it's a complicated scenario that we need to look at from different angles.
Yeah, I do think it's misleading, though, for him to say that, that it's not usually part of the problem. Devin Kelly, Sutherland Springs, the Texas church shooter, Dylan Roof, Charleston, South Carolina, Aaron Alexis, the Navy Yard shooter, Adam Lanza, Jason Holmes in the Aurora, Colorado movie theater, Jared Lochner. To say, David, that this is not a big part of this issue, I think undercuts, a serious part of what we're talking about here.
And that's just somebody who hates guns and hates the Second Amendment, Martha. But compare the two. What Trump did was repeal a law that dealt with people who received SSI payments, everything from, as Trace said, anxiety or minor depression, veterans who are suffering from PTSD without due process, no hearing. Their constitutional rights were stripped. Now look at young Nicholas Cruz. Repeated calls about his threats of violence, repeated calls about his out-of-control behavior, about his threats against schools, against students, about the fact that he had guns and he was going to use those guns to shoot up schools. Comparing those two concepts they're not comparable. Yeah. And the fact is that the Broward County Sheriff's Department should have taken action. They didn't take an action. They didn't take action. There's no comparison between that and the issue of the SSI payments, and the SSI issues, which President Trump repealed, and he did it the right way, and he did the right thing.
It seems to me that the government failed at every single level here. And you do see a lot of attention being leveled at the NRA right now. But look at this is from Ellison Barber, a reporter of ours in Washington. She says the call to the FBI lasted more than 13 minutes. Before the tipster called the FBI, she called law enforcement officials in Parkland. She didn't hear back from them. I mean, the more we learn about this, the delay on the videotape, they thought they were looking at him in the building, but he was already 20 minutes gone. Michael, are we we can't ask, the government to solve these problems when at every case, the FBI on down, they failed in this situation.
There were a lot of missteps here, but one of the emergency room doctors who treated a lot of these victims said that had these been handgun injuries rather than an AR-15, many of these people would have survived. And so I think what we need to do is also have a conversation about mitigating the damage done in these shootings. And when you have weapons of war on the street, it makes it more difficult for survivors to be able to overcome the situation.
David, why should we allow these weapons? Ralph Peters, who is, Ralph Peters. I mean, he's a military guy, a colonel. He knows a lot about history and about warfare. He said there's no reason why these weapons should be in civilian hands. They're machines that are built to kill lots of people.
Well, Ralph is wrong. I own an AR-15. I have a lot of friends with AR-15s. We don't kill people. We don't kill animals. We go to the range like I'm going to do tomorrow, big outdoor open range, and enjoy them with my family. That's what 98% of people who own AR-15s do. The reality is the gun's a machine, the killer is a person, and without the crazy person, without the person's having evil intent, the gun can't do anything.
All right.
Mental health has got to be dealt with.
I want to go back to mental health here for a moment, because one of the things that the president raised, and he talked about something that is perhaps not talked about enough. We do not have the kind of mental health facilities in this country that we used to have. There were mental health institutions in this country that got a ton of criticism, and rightfully so. Some of these places were so horrific that they had to be shut down. But now what we have is an environment where, people are sent home with medication. And there are times where someone needs to be separated from their community because they are not safe. In fact, this young man's brother was forcibly institutionalized shortly after this happened, Michael. Is that something that we should see more of?
It is. I was a public defender here in Manhattan. I would say over 90% of my cases in criminal court dealt with people who were suffering from mental illness and had nowhere to go. They had no available treatment to get. We've got to get better with this. This was something that was cut out of the budget in the last budget, and we have to bring it back because we have to treat mental illness.
David.
One thing you have to understand is that when someone, like here in California, if you're 5150, which is an involuntary 72-hour hold, that shows up on your criminal background check. You won't get a weapon if that shows up. Also, a conservatorship, civil adjudication of mental health, that shows up. So there are safeguards, but we definitely need more.
You know
of
what?
that.
I just want to say one other thing. There are these new red flag laws that states are adopting, where a family member or the law enforcement can go to the police, go to a court, excuse me, and say, please take away my family member's gun, right? And you look at this person on the phone with the FBI for 13 minutes. The FBI is going to have to answer to this. I mean, somebody's going to have to be held accountable, because otherwise I don't know what we're doing. But red flag laws are something that we also need to get really serious about looking into more. So much to talk about. Thank you, guys. Great to see you both tonight.
Thank you, Martha.